Does vaping cause the same harm to public health that cigarettes do? Same rules, same effect, because it's the same thing, so says the Department of Health. Their proposed Tobacco Product and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill is proposing the same regulations that monitor cigarettes to be imposed on vaping. And as you'd expect, it's provoked outrage from the vaping industry, which contends the regulations and its penalties are simply too harsh and restrictive for consumers who may want to quit cigarettes. So if introduced, this will bring a total ban on the display of tobacco products or e-cigarettes at points of sale and the sale of products at vending machines, for example. Cigarettes and vapes will essentially be sold in the same standardized and plain packaging. No longer will it be sold or distributed online through postal services or couriers. And certainly public places and workplaces will introduce 100% smoke-free indoor and certain outdoor areas, with smokers also prohibited from smoking in the presence of children, disturbing neighbors with tobacco products or e-cigarettes, even in their private dwellings. And the penalties will be heavy, including fines and jail terms between 3 months and 20 years. So I'm pleased to tell you we have to talk to us about this the Deputy Director General for Primary Healthcare at the National Department of Health, Jeanette Hunter. We're also joined by the Chairperson at Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, Sinenhlanhla Mnguni, to explain all of this. Let's start with the Department of Health. Jeanette Hunter, appreciate your time. The vaping industry says this is all too harsh. Why these proposed regulations?
So we are still busy with the Act. And after the Act, then we'll start regulating. And remember, so we're not even talking regulations now, because regulations also have to go out for public comment. So let me say the aim of the Act is, let me go from your introduction, because I think you've explained to the listeners what this is about. Why these regulations is that there's evidence that vaping and even its second-hand effects causes harm, can cause serious illness, and also lead to death. No different to tobacco smoking. Let me leave it at that.
Is there sufficient data to prove that vaping essentially causes the same harm, the same level of harm as cigarettes do?
Absolutely. All our presentations to the different bodies, almost every paragraph has got links to peer-reviewed research. There's absolutely enough peer-reviewed evidence for that.
All right, let's bring in Sinenhlanhla Mnguni, the Chairperson at Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association. Sinenhlanhla, the Department of Health contends vaping is as dangerous to public health as cigarettes.
Good morning, Bongani. Thank you for having me on your show. Look, the jury's still out on that, but at the end of the day, I think as industry, we cannot, sort of argue against those kinds of views from the Department of Health. The understanding, though, is that vaping, of course, is a cessation tool, which is slightly different to cigarettes. And overall, I think the mechanism or the methods behind vaping and other electronic nicotine delivery systems or non-nicotine delivery systems is to help people, of course, get off the smoking of cigarettes. Be that as it may, as I said earlier on, we've seen this globally being applied. So it's not a law that we necessarily can oppose, or we think it would be prudent to oppose given the data that is out there. However, what we've stated over a number of years is that industry deserves, or rather requests, the right to be engaged by government before implementing policies which have the ability to impact on the industry and its various stakeholders, employees, and so forth, at quite a significant level. And over the years, we've seen a great reluctance from government to engage industry on issues that affect the industry and its longevity.
So you don't disagree with this in principle. It's the how that you have a problem with?
Exactly. And I mean, we know, and I think anyone that's paid attention to the tobacco industry over the years knows that the industry has been subjected to ever-changing legislation, and the landscape, and as far as the industry, has been globally quite impacted by a shift towards a more healthier approach from various states and bodies who regulate the tobacco industry to ensure that, of course, there is this good balance between the economic benefits of the tobacco industry, but also looking at the health implications and the burdens on the various healthcare systems. I mean, this very same goes applied globally in countries such as Australia, United Kingdom, France, and so forth. But again, there needs to be a balance where an industry is engaged to ensure that, of course, our considerations are put forward.
So, Nentland, you're well aware of the processes that have to be undertaken when legislation is enacted in South Africa. Jeanette Hunter's point is that all of that is still to come. But ultimately, does this how matter when there's been demonstrable evidence of the kind of health harm that vaping also causes, anything from lung damage, for example, or even deaths associated with vaping? We're really ultimately swapping one set of toxins for another.
Certainly, and that's not disputed, Bongani. But what we're saying is that ultimately, and we live in a constitutional democracy, and I mean there are many other things, that are deleterious to one's health. If we look at sugar, alcohol, and so forth, and where there is choice, where people are advised, and this is something that we've advocated for, is that there is an educationally protocol or avenue that has been processed by the tobacco industry and the vaping industry to ensure that people are, of course, aware of the dangers of smoking. And this is something, that was advocated for and implemented by the Department of Health as early as the 90s with the health warnings and the banning on advertising. We do not dispute the fact that there is health risks associated with the ingestion of any nicotine.
So therefore, surely public health matters more than your profits.
Certainly. But again, like I said earlier on, Bongani, this is still an industry which contributes a significant amount to the fiscus and which is a great employer of a substantial number of South Africans. And that is why I said
That's not the dispute, though. Here, what the Department of Health is trying to deal with is the idea that electronic cigarettes are just as harmful, just as addictive, perhaps even, as traditional cigarettes. Surely that matters more here in this conversation.
Of course. And as I said earlier on, we do not wish to dispute the evidence that's in place with regards to the dangers associated with the smoking of electronic nicotine delivery systems or non-nicotine delivery systems. We agree wholeheartedly with government and its plans to implement interventions. We feel that every industry needs to be regulated. In fact, we encourage the interventions that government seeks to implement with regards to nicotine delivery systems, because currently we don't have any legislation which governs that space. And you, of course, are going to attract many substandard goods which are possibly more harmful than those of some of the players in that particular space. So no, we do not have an issue with regards to what government seeks to do. All I said as I started on your show this morning is that we just wish to be engaged so that we know the parameters within which we can play in order to be a sustainable business in the space.
Nentland Bongani, the chairperson at Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association. Jeanette Hunter, I'll let you have the last word from this. You've heard Nentland, he says, essentially, don't bulldoze us. We are an economic contributor, and actually vaping is a cessation tool that many people have used to get off cigarettes and smoking entirely. Cooperate with us, collaborate with us, don't bulldoze us.
Thank you, Bongani, and thank you to Sin and Club for that almost like a balanced approach. As there is no evidence that vaping can help people to quit smoking. In fact, it just makes them to vape more because they still crave the same amount of nicotine that they were taking in through the cigarettes, which means more sales for the vaping product. And also, vaping, when young people start vaping, there's also no evidence that they stop there. It's almost like an entry drug to cigarettes and others. And on the issue of consultation, when we pass a law, it's regulated through Parliament. So there's definite processes that you have to follow for a law to progress to being adopted, and then you can make regulations under that law. And to date, the department has followed all those, and I'm making that remark in terms of Senator Nhlanhla's comment that we are not engaging. But you can't also engage in a circle, Bongani. You can't engage in circular reasoning because the industry won't move. They do want to make profits. They do want to sell more. You must just see how the vaping products are branded. There's a vaping product that's branded like a Pokemon with a piece of stick on its head for someone to suck on. And why would you bring Bart Simpson into your branding if you don't mean to attract the attention of children and youth? Let me stop there. Thank you, Bongani.
All right, thank you to you both. Jeanette Hunter is the Deputy Director General for Primary Healthcare at the National Department of Health. How do you dice this? Do you smoke? Were you a former smoker who now vapes? Has vaping helped you to stop smoking at all? Where are you on this debate?
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.